Today on Plums, we have Alex from Fastlane. Alex is wicked smart, and with Fastlane, they're bringing validator tech, solving MEV, and bringing application-specific sequencing to Monad. Let's get into it. Alex, fantastic to have you on Plums. It's a delight to have you. How you doing?
I am doing very well, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really good. I mean, especially to have you on Plums. You're one of the big dogs in the ecosystem. But I've got a quick question for you, Alex. Why did the validator get a speeding ticket? Because it was caught in the fast lane.
I love it.
Oh, no. I told you it was going to be bad.
I'm going to fire my marketing team for not coming up with that first. That's amazing.
Oh, man. Look, Alex, I love working with you in Fastlane. And you set up as a group chat for people, people that are backing the project. And it just makes me laugh because there's that kind of Trump did that thing where he's like, you're going to get tired of winning and you're going to be like this. Because I reckon that half the conversation is basically us saying like, please, Alex, I have a headache. Please stop. The winning's getting too much. And you're like, no, we must improve the blockchains. We're going to keep on going. And it's just that verbatim. You just absolutely destroying any, narrative that comes out and just delivering bangers after bangers. And with that, what I wonder about is, and forgive me, for this, but how do you stay focused when you're so dominating a field? Because it's easy to get complacent when you're winning, right? So how do you stay, focused on delivering when you're doing so well already?
That's a very good question, and I hadn't really thought about it like that. From my point of view, it's not about like Fastlane winning. It's about Monad winning, right? And it's like we are directly, for better or for worse, we believe for better, but we are directly tied in to the success of Monad. And so it's from our point of view, it's less about the competition, so called, and more so about like Monad's competition. Like Monad's competition is our competition. And so if you start looking at the things that we're really focusing on, which are things like, building bridges between validators and apps so that apps can deliver like a faster user experience, and, setting up commitment systems inside of our LST so that apps can deliver like a 1-click or even a 0-click or even a fully automated, like, non-existent because it's automated user experience. Like, these are the kinds of things where it's like, we don't really view any of them as like stuff that we offer that our competition doesn't, because that's never like why we made them to begin with. We view it as stuff that Monad offers that Monad's competition doesn't. And for us, it's really all about just like trying to help Monad just assert its dominance by throwing its plums around, just being as dominant as possible. And so like for us, until Monad is the number one blockchain, we will always have something like, motivating us and driving us, because like at the end of the day, that's really what like, makes us like all win. A rising tide floats all boats. And we like to think that our boat is on the Monad ocean.
Yeah, that's dope. It's a really good way to think of it. And as you say, like you're developing something and working on something and delivering a product that makes it possible or makes it incredibly more likely that Monad is going to be the number one. And not every blockchain has the equivalent of a Fastlane developing amazing tech. And specifically something, that I'm a huge fan of, application-specific sequencing. And you alluded it to there about getting the apps the best service they need so that they can deliver the best experience to their users and capture the most value for the protocol. And not every chain has that, right? And so it gives that monad that unfair advantage by benefiting from what you guys are doing with what
Very much
is
so.
essentially reasonably novel. I'm going to say it is novel. I mean, it's new, essentially new tech. That's just, you've written. You do a lot of writing, and I enjoy a lot of the writing. I don't always understand everything that you write because it is high level stuff, right? In fact, I think a piece came out today. It's just endless, the research and the work that you put out. But you've developed this system, and it is incredibly cool, and it's going to fundamentally change the way that applications interact with validators, right?
Yes, and I think like a big part of this is focusing on like giving apps the tools that they need to just have more control, to have more of a I hate saying it, a fast lane through an
Yeah.
otherwise adversarial stack, right? Because at the very beginning, you've got the user, and the user's interacting with a website, a front end, right? And in between that point and the point where the transaction is included in the block and the block becomes like finalized as part of the blockchain, it's a lot of people waiting to intercept and waiting to just grab and extract value. And so one of the things that we were just like really focused on is how do we make it so that the value that is created is like captured at the same, like at the point of creation, right? And the reason why that's such a big deal for us is because if we can take this value and capture it at the point of creation, that means that there's nothing left for any of the sharks, swimming in the ocean in between the users and the validators. And this is at the core, this is what application specific sequencing is. And it like is something that apps can provide their users, that they kind of build into their front end. The users don't even need to know it exists. They don't feel it, but they are protected. They are, I don't even want to say protected, because that implies that like all it does is prevent bad things. Like they are boosted, they are improved by application specific sequencing, if that's how the app has designed it.
Yeah.
And it's something where, like from Fastlane's point of view, we're big believers in high throughput blockchains. And one of the main reasons why is because this application specific sequencing stuff, what it does is it takes a lot of the calculations, a lot of the programs, a lot of the compute that's happening at these infrastructure layers in this supply chain, and rather than having like a block builder or like searcher or like a relay do these calculations, instead we take these calculations that are handled by infrastructure, by middlemen, by like rent seeking teams, and we do it on chain.
Yeah. And
we do it inside of a trustless, immutable smart contract, which is, I would argue, how blockchains were always supposed to be to begin with. And what's neat about this is that it allows us to just like know ahead of time, like, hey, this user is signing a transaction. It's going through this application specific sequencing smart contract, which is going to do all of these calculations on chain. And so we don't have to worry about getting intercepted or getting front run or anything like this by all of these other actors in the ocean. But at the same time, the one downside, and the reason why you don't see application-specific sequencing really taking off on something like Ethereum mainnet, is that when you do more calculations and when you do more compute, when you run more programs on chain, that tends to cost more money. Yeah. It tends to use up more gas. And so for Fastlane, we've been very cognizant of this sort of trade-off between safety and cost. And so when we started hearing about Monad, and how 10,000 TPS blockchain, like 1 second finality, just very, very attractive properties, especially with asynchronous execution. Yep. We were like, oh, that sounds amazing. That's perfect for us, and like we loved it. But at the same time, for us, like the other thing we were looking at for Monad was the EVM. When people think of like a high throughput blockchain, most people's minds immediately go to Solana, which is a great blockchain. It's great. But unfortunately for Solana, and the reason why we didn't focus on Solana is that application-specific sequencing does not work on the Solana blockchain, unless it has been changed in between the recording and when the person is watching this, which is unlikely, I think. At the end of the day, with Solana, in order to get their high throughput, they had to make a lot of sacrifices. They had to make a lot of trade-offs. Things that seemed inefficient were just removed. Like if you think of like a car, imagine like all of the, cushions removed, the airbag taken out of the, driver's wheel, like all of these like inefficient things have just been scraped out so that it's like very bare bones. And that is the Solana blockchain. It is a very high throughput. It is very efficient, but it didn't have everything that we needed in order to do application specific sequencing, because we are taking compute that could have been done at, the middleware part of the stack, and we are putting it on chain, and that's inefficient, some people might say. We don't believe that, but some people would. And so for us, Monad was really the first blockchain where we started to think like, hey, this is possible, a high throughput chain. This works. This is fully EVM, which means all of our tech works. And like we fell in love. And like to this day, there's not really a second like alternative to Monad as far as our technology is concerned.
Yeah, I just sat here listening to you. I'm reminded how much I enjoy your views on blockchains and the trade-offs between them. And I, in the run-up to this, I had thought about a few questions around that, and we'll come on to them in a minute. But one thing I wanted to ask you, just pretty briefly, is there a risk around centralization given one player is doing so well? So if 100% of validators continue to be Fastlane, is that actually a problem? And I know it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's proven, well, this is the best tag doing the right stuff, but then it's also potential centralization risk. Tell us your thoughts.
It's a very good question. So I think that for most MEV, so like, Fastlane, a lot of people would say that we are an MEV company. MEV stands for maximum extractable value. I think that for most MEV companies, that would be an accurate criticism, right? And that's because most MEV companies will fundamentally have this infrastructure, and this infrastructure is doing these calculations, and it is typically considered a centralized point of potential failure, right? If you have like on Ethereum, if you have all of these transactions going through like one or two different block builders, like that's very, very centralized. And so from Fastlane's point of view, we actually decided to like, hey, let's just take a lot of this logic and put it on chain. And so fundamentally, just by moving a lot of these like, infrastructure dependencies, which are centralized, by like removing them and instead handling the computations and the calculations that they do by like handling that on chain, we are no longer what I would say is like, a centralized dependency. And like, as much as I would love to say that the reason why we made that choice was to reduce centralization, candidly, it's not. Candidly, the real thing that was like driving our, transition and like driving our desire to take these, centralized points and remove them is to go faster. Hence the Fastlane. And so what we have like come to the conclusion of is that like, on most chains, people will take these calculations and they will do them off chain before the validator to save money, right? Rather than doing expensive stuff on chain, they add an extra step, adding when you're using Waze or like going from point A to point, C, you add a point B in between, right? That slows down your trip. You're, adding an extra stop. And so while on most chains, adding that extra stop will reduce the cost of the transactions because you're doing fewer calculations on chain, you're doing less, running fewer programs on chain. For us, we were like, fuck it. We want to go fast. And so we just were like, all right, let's just skip that extra step entirely. Let's have everything just beam straight to the validator. Let's wrap it all in smart contract logic so that we can asynchronously perform these calculations at the point of execution, which matches perfectly with Monad's asynchronous execution, by the way. And it's something that we were just like very opinionated about. Like we knew at Fastlane, because like we've been working on this stuff for almost 3 years now. Actually, Fastlane's a little older than 3 years, but like we've been working on this for a while. Like we knew there would be a blockchain where our opinionated choices about like being fast and having a lot of compute, like we knew there was a blockchain out there that was perfect for us. It just took a few years, for it to come along.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it's wicked smart stuff. I want to wind back a little bit into your history. You know, when talking about validators and nodes and going back a few cycles, I loved GPU mining. I was mining, there was something called Horizon. I think Grayscale still have a trust for it. I don't know if you remember it. And it was like, there was some proof of work, some proof of stake, and you could stake some of this Zen tokens. I used to remember looking through like Bitcoin Talk and trying to find new like nodes that I could run, and they were all complete horse crap. Like it was really bad. But yeah, were you involved like back then with nodes? You weren't staking stuff. Yeah, what were you doing?
Relatively new.
Okay.
So I got into crypto in 2020. I was working in TradFi at the time, and I had come across this DeFi protocol called Iron Finance, and it was a partial reserve or fractional reserve stablecoin, and it had this like algorithm. It was very similar to Luna, like Terra Luna, and it had this algorithm for pricing. And I was looking at the algorithm, and I was looking at the chart, and I was realizing that there was a huge arbitrage opportunity available that no one was taking. And so I manually did the arbitrage once, and I was like, oh shit, I actually made money. I bought something for $1 and I sold it for like $1.03. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Coming from TradFi, that kind of thing is not supposed to exist. The markets are supposed to be efficient. And so the big breakthrough for me was realizing the DeFi markets in particular are extremely inefficient. And that was very addictive to me because I had always wanted to do high frequency trading. I ended up in TradFi doing bond stuff, which is like, if HFT stuff is, being like, flying a fighter jet, in Top Gun, I'm like, a Delta pilot flying a Boeing 747 with like my bonds. And so I had always like really wanted to do HFT stuff, and I found this inefficient market, and I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. And so I wrote I was not the best programmer back then. This was 2020, so this was 5 years ago. I wrote this like very basic bot in Python. It was like a few thousand lines long, which is like just terrible programming, by the way. And it was just a whole bunch of like, if this, then this, if this, then this. Yeah. And I turned it on just to like, as like a trial run. I think I put like $1,000 in it, and I turned it on. And then like I went out to grab a beer with some of my buddies at this like local brewery. And I came back 3 hours later, and the thing had paid me $15,000. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, I was addicted. I was like, this is crazy. And like, I can't stress enough. This is the kind of arbitrage where like people are like, oh, he's some, smart MEV guy. No, it was literally minting a stable coin when I could buy the component parts for less than $1 and redeeming the stable coin when I could buy the stable coin for less than $1 and buy the parts for less than $1. And it's very, very basic stable coin arbitrage. Yeah. And I fell in love with it. And then about 2 weeks after that, all of a sudden my bot stopped working. And I was like, what's going on? Why is my bot not working anymore? And it turned out that somebody had seen my strategy in this thing called the memory pool, which is where all of these transactions go. Yep. And they were just copying me and front running me. Coming from TradFi, front running is super, super illegal. This was a very foreign concept to me. So it took me a while to like actually like understand what was happening.
I can imagine your face at the time.
Yeah, dude, I was like, what fuck? Like, fuck this guy. But that was my first experience with MEV, and I realized that like all of a sudden there was this like whole realm of competition.
Yeah,
there's a whole game. And this game didn't really exist. I mean, it kind of exists in TradFi, but it didn't exist like this, right? It was a very different game. And this was a new game that, like, as far as I knew, people hadn't really played before. There was Flashbots, which had like pioneered MEV, but Flashbots wasn't a thing in the blockchain where I was like, doing this arbitrage. And so for me, there was this game, like no one had really written any rules. No one really knew what was going on. We were all just making it up as we went.
Yeah.
And I found that to be very, very fun.
Yeah, intoxicating.
And it was so addictive. I made a stupid amount of money that first year. And just had a blast doing it.
Yeah, so good.
The origin story of Fastlane is that like as I was like expanding, so like I started off by myself, and then I started like adding teammates who were very good in areas that I was not. Like my first partner was this dude who was like a back-end engineer from Google, and he taught me all about like back-end programming and systems programming and stuff like that. Then we had a like smart contract dude who wrote all of our smart contracts in assembly, which is like very that means a lot in certain MEV circles. It's very efficient smart contract programming. Then we got like a quant who was on garden leave from Citadel, and he taught me like all of the like quant math that I hadn't looked at in like 15 years in school, and a lot of new stuff they developed since then too, because I was never very good at that stuff in school to begin with, to be frank. And it was just so much fun. And
this crack team, this A team of people that because as you say, these people and any general person, you wouldn't know this existed. You assume that all these markets are efficient, that everyone's reasonably sophisticated, but we had this whole new thing that had blown up, and basically it was just me and the boys, on SushiSwap doing one.
We made a lot of money on SushiSwap. Like it's like, dude, it's so crazy because like no one knew what they were doing. Everyone was making it up at the same time. Yeah. It was the wild, wild west, and it was just like so much fun. Yeah. And so like my team, we did have a few like rules. Like we never sandwich attacked anybody. And so like we never did any like type of MEV that hurt people. Yeah. But we were doing stat arb, we were doing liquidations, we were doing like top of black arbitrage, back runs, like pretty much every type of MEV other than sandwich attacks. And it was just so much fun because we just like kept running into stuff where we were trying to solve problems that like no one else even knew existed. Yeah. And it was so much fun. Yeah. And I had a blast doing it.
Yeah, so much fun.
From there, so like was doing that, had a lot of fun doing that. And then the blockchain that we were on ended up crashing. And like I like to tell people that I used to be, part of the red team. One of the things that you used to be able to do in order to increase your odds of winning in like MEV is to just send a lot of transactions. Yeah. And so what I did, and this was just like made up thing that I did that like, no one else had like thought of doing. I just literally made this up because I thought it would be funny. It's like we would send different transactions to different people. Like we would identify our competitors' nodes. So like if you were running a full node and you were running a bot, we would send you like one version of a transaction that made you think we were doing one thing. Yes. And then we would send the validator's node a totally different thing. And these two things, like these two transactions would be mutually exclusive. So you wouldn't see our actual thing. Yes. But like we ended up doing a lot of like very spammy things that ended up putting a lot of stress and a lot of strain on the blockchain. I'm not going to say that we crashed any blockchain, but we definitely weren't helping. Yeah, I guess. And when this like blockchain did crash, we ended up losing a lot of money because we were doing stat arb and like we had like one position one where and another, and like we couldn't balance. Yeah. And I took that personally. And so that's where Fastlane came in. We wanted to create a system for bots to like mine, like MEV teams, to be able to send their transactions without having to spam, without having to send like hundreds or thousands, honestly, of like redundant transactions. And so Fastlane started to exist because somebody, again, I am definitely not the most likely culprit, but I definitely was not, helping, I guess at the time. I wasn't the worst spammer, but definitely was not.
But if the system can't live with that, it doesn't deserve to exist. So it needs, you need the, it needs to be battle tested. It needs, if it can't survive that, then it can't scale to serve, humanity, which is essentially where we're trying to get to, right? So,
yes,
yeah, that's so good hearing that story. Yeah, such a good origin arc, throughout, and to hear how much enjoyment you had through it. Now, Alex, something I think you are going to enjoy is here on Plums, we always do an interlude. This is our first musical interlude, and it's going to blow
Oh boy.
your mind.
I'm a Naz and ass man, a Naz and ass man. Shout out to that Fastlane, it's Naz and ass gang. I'm a Naz and ass man, a Naz and ass man. Shout out to that Fastlane, it's Naz and ass gang. Application is specific, you know we sequencing. Web-related risk is finished, and you can keep them chained. That's can now go take control of execution strategy. Cryptographic hash, that's his contraction orders happily. I'm a Naz and ass man, a Naz and ass man. Shout out to that Fastlane, it's Naz and ass gang. I'm a Naz and ass man, a Naz and ass man. Shout out to that Fastlane, it's Naz and ass gang. I'm a Naz and ass man, a Naz and ass man. Shout out to that Fastlane, it's Naz and ass gang. I'm a Naz and ass man, a Naz and ass man. Shout out to that Fastlane, it's Naz and ass gang.
I love like a casual, just like deep tech reference to like cryptographic hashing, ensuring transaction sequence ordering, just like right in the middle, just like smacking some like it's like some like deeply technical, like completely accurate. That's exactly how that works. That's awesome.
So good. Yeah,
Dude,
Dr.
Flary-
Freeball and put that together from the
Flary
shout.
was moving his wings, man. Flary's wings were just, they were moving.
Well, yeah, I mean, firstly, shout out to Dr. Preball for putting that together for us. Absolutely first class. It's been stuck in my head and the producer Adrian's head for like weeks as we've been waiting to get in front of you. Just so good. We've been listening to it on repeat. But yeah,
That's amazing.
Flary. So I've never known whether that's wings or an ass or like veiny bollocks, because when you look at it, it could be any of them. Where did Flary come from? Like, where's the origin story of Flary?
So the origin story of Flary is, I mean, he's been around for like centuries. If you go back to Pompeii, you can actually see carvings of Flary in like the ruins of Pompeii before the volcano erupted. Some say they saw him like, deep in the Marianas Trench back in the 1940s, back when they were doing nuclear testing there. It's actually like pretty crazy. Like reportedly, some Egyptian hieroglyphics have like referenced Flary. And so like I like to say that like, Flary has always been here.
Yeah.
There's never been a world that like existed without Flary. To envision a world without Flary is to envision a world that doesn't exist, which is like tautologically impossible. And so I like to think that, in that same sense, the majority of Flary's body is an eigen position that could be either wings, nuts, or ass.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one ever really knows what they are.
No.
And if one observes too closely, then like one stops seeing any of them, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Schrodinger's box,
Good.
where like you can never really look too closely. And this might be why Flary like sightings in modern day are so rare, right?
Yeah.
And why we typically have to go to like deep into like paleontology and those kinds of sciences to really like learn about Flary. Like why is he here?
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
really
hopefully
know.
this song acts as like a mating call now, and the Flaries come out to dance with the Nads to this beautiful song. But yeah, I don't know if I've ever been more proud of my work in the Monad space than organizing that song. So good. Now, you mentioned some of your team earlier on. I'm a big fan of Tom, and for those of you who don't know Tom is a monster of a man. I mean, his neck just like connects to his head. The guy looks like he could like carry me for like 500 miles, and that he just plays rugby all day, and you know, it's just an absolute monster of a machine. Yeah, and I like to assume that he plays rugby, but I wondered.
He does.
He does. Yeah. Okay.
He was like very good at it.
Yeah, I bet. Like he looks like he was incredibly serious. A little bit scary.
I think his brother is still playing professionally.
Are you kidding? Well, I wondered.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what team. I'm American, but I'm pretty sure his brother's still playing.
I'm going to see if I can look it up. But for yourself, you know, what hobbies, obsessions, what do you do outside of Fastlane?
That's a very good question. Not much.
Not much.
I think that, like, for me, I mean, genuinely, like, working in MEV is so fun. This kind of is my hobby, but it's also my full-time job. And like, it's still like, I've been doing MEV or MEV adjacent stuff for 5 years, and it still is like every day I wake up and it's like something is new, something has changed, something is like, you know, worth getting excited about, like genuinely. And so I still think that, like, you know, from my point of view, I'm still lucky in that the thing that I want to spend the most time on is the thing that I am spending the most time on. Yeah. I'm you know, married and have a son, so you know, I feel like my wife would murder me if I didn't like mention that. And so, you know, super happy to, you know, spend time with the family, and like I love doing stuff like that. As far as like traditional hobbies go, I guess like for me, I do typically snowboarding in the winter and mountain biking in the summer. I used to be good at both before Fastlane and before MEV. I'm in horrible shape now. I went mountain biking, I think like weekend before last, and I was just gassed after like a very like short, like, you know, very like intermediate level run. And so now I'm like looking at like electronic bikes. I'm like, all right, well, you know, MEV, at least electricity. No, but like I think like from my point of view, I've always been attracted to the hobbies that have this like adrenaline component to them, and I feel like for me, I mean, honestly, you know, MEV gives me that as well. So I mean, maybe I'm just a giant like nerdy adrenaline junkie, but I have a blast doing that.
Super interesting to hear, because it's exactly the same with me. Like, I used to play a lot of computer games, then I used to drive very fast, jump off cliffs, do all kinds of stuff. And, you know, now, overwhelmingly, I get my kicks from playing with Magic Internet Money. You know, it's amazing, that kind of flip that's happened in my life. I don't know if my wife might prefer me to go and jump off cliffs rather than play Magic Internet, but we'll see. But talking about, you know, going out, I just very briefly, I've been trying to get fit myself, and I've just started doing a bit more walking. And I went to the top of a mountain 2 days ago and broke my ankle. So I now have a broken ankle down here. But at least it distracted me from my broken wrist, which I broke last year.
Oh no!
Still recovering from.
I'm terrified of that, man. Because like if I break my wrist, that's like
big problems.
That's big problems. So like when I go snowboarding, it's actually really funny. So like I used to be a very good snowboarder. Like I would do like all the like toughest stuff on like, you know, like real mountains, but I would always wear wrist guards. Yeah. Because like I don't like if I break my ankle, if I break my like legs, if I tear like my ACL, it's like fine, I'll just sit down, which is what I'm doing all the time anyway, right? It's like not that big a deal. But if I break a wrist, I can't type anymore. Yeah. And so I'll wear these like right over there, but they're like wrapped up. Like I'll wear these like wrist guards. Yeah. So that if I do like have like a really bad fall, I can break pretty much every part of my body except
your wrists will be fine.
Except my wrist, yeah. And like the downside though is that like there will be these like these lifts, like these parts of the mountain that I can't go to, because in order to get to them you have to like hold on to these things, and they'll like kind of like pull you up. Yeah. But I can't fully grasp the ropes of these lifts because my wrist guards are like too big. Yeah. And so I'll look like I'm like a brand new dude, just like falling off like, you know, these lifts. And I find it like really funny where like I'm like like I'm not bad, but like at the same time, I'm just like playing it overly safe with my wrists,
Yeah.
and then I'll just go down like a double black diamond and just
Yeah,
like YOLO it because.
But you've got to, I literally, my middle finger now is completely numb, so I'm typing without my middle finger. It's less than ideal. But anyway, we've
What
come
happened?
to the end of our time together. It's been awesome as always to spend some time with you. I'm consistently and constantly inspired by the work you're putting together, and yeah, it's really good to see and great to hear about. Here on Plums today. So thank you very much, Alex, for coming on.
Dude, thank you for having me. Always a blast.
We'll speak soon. Peace.
The information and discussion provided here is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Berry is not licensed to provide investment advice and does not offer such. Berry typically holds positions in the project and protocols he discusses and discloses that to you here. Opinions expressed by guests are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect the views of Berry, Plums, or their affiliates. As with all things, and especially financial matters, please do your own research and consult with professionals where relevant.